Welcome back, City Builders. Kodiak the Kodiak here. In this week's weekly recap, we'll go over the first word of the week of the new year, as well as some pretty important mod updates. Now, before we get started, I do want to say that over 80% of you that watch the videos on my channel are not subscribed. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please drop that subscription. It truly helps and means a ton to me. We are chasing 3,000 subscribers on the channel, and I would love to hit that by the end of the month. So please make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you can keep up to date with all the City Skylines 2 news, tips, and tricks. Without further ado, let's get started. Now, before we get started, I know I promised the map video that was supposed to come out this past week. I had some car troubles that took up an entire day's worth of my time, and I just didn't have a ton of time to actually get it finished. So really sorry about that. That should be up this next week. I'm going to stop telling you guys deadlines so you're not being dragged on for videos from now on. Let me tell you, there is some amazing custom maps, and if you haven't taken a look at them yourself, this should be a pretty fantastic list of new maps to start new cities on. Now that that's out of the way, we'll go over the word of the week. Word of the week number 8. It's the first one of the new year, and they start off by saying everyone is back in the office to working on City Skylines 2. Maybe they're working from home, I don't actually know, but they're back and all working on City Skylines 2. Nobody's on holiday vacation anymore, so we should start to see a lot of progress be done on the game. They do say down here, as we have stated earlier, there is no higher priority than releasing the modding support for the game. The editor UI is expected to be ready enough for the closed beta in a few weeks. Now, the closed beta is hyperlinked back to word of the week number 5, where they go over just in detail what the closed beta is going to mean for modders, and that you can apply for early access to that if you are a modder who makes mods. So if you're a modder who makes mods, who watches my videos, please go back to word of the week number 5, or just click the link down below to word of the week number 8, and then click this little hyperlink down here, and it'll take you back to that, which will then in turn link you to another website that will allow you to apply for the closed beta and kind of goes into detail about what that is. The closed beta just allows modders the early access to be able to access the official modding support so they can get a jump start on those mods, so by the time PDX mods actually comes out, they'll be fully ready with the built-in modding tools. They do then follow that up by saying there is an issue with the asset importers still that we are hard at work on solving. If the issue is not resolved in a reasonable time, we'll consider releasing the editor without the ability to import custom assets and just have the maps and code modding presence. I thought this was kind of what was actually happening already. It seems like they've been trying to go back and forth, or at least try to get the asset importer out at the same time. As far as I understood it, this was kind of always the case, that the asset importer was not supposed to be ready at the same time as code modding. Now remember, without the asset importer, we will not get those regional packs as well, so hopefully they get this solved in time. Regardless, though, I would be incredibly happy with official code modding support. There are quite a few mods like Traffic Manager Presence Edition, as well as Move It, that are hard at work behind the scenes, being worked on, but using official modding support, and should in time be ready to release alongside PDX mods. Some of that has to do with using the official modding tools, but other things also slow down the development process, and things like Move It, for example, are still actively being worked on. Like, they wouldn't even be ready to be released yet, even with official modding tools. And I know that the creator of Move It, Cuboid, actually has had access to the backend for quite a bit and is working very hard to get Move It working. Further down below, they say the console version of the game will also have the editor minus code modding, so therefore the editor is the highest priority. But in parallel, we're also working on stability and performance on console to make the game available for console players as soon as possible. If I remember correctly, they did say that code modding and PDX mods was their highest priority alongside performance issues, and that those in turn would help console get out faster. I think they said that June is kind of their target, if I remember correctly, for releasing the game on console, or at least sometime in Q2. Maybe into Q3. And if I also remember correctly, it does seem like the code editor will kind of start to be out here in the next month or two. So really keep an eye out for code mods, and make sure you guys have notifications turned on, because I'll make sure to keep you guys posted as soon as PDX mods is available. Obviously, it'll be a big update. It'll be a big hoopla. Everyone will be talking about it, but we'll obviously have a video over here talking about it as soon as it's live. It does look like it will be coming down the pipeline here in the next month or two. The last thing they have here is before the editor's release, we'll have a bug fixing patch that will include fixes for issues that have been resolved while the work above is ongoing. So they're actively fixing bugs while certain team members are working on PDX mods. Obviously, not everyone is able to work on all that stuff. You can't just like take a UI designer and then, you know, throw them into some other category that's fixing bugs for other related things. So the people who are actively fixing bugs are still fixing bugs while the PDX mods is all going on, because different team members have different roles, yada, yada, yada. So we're going to get a patch here that will hopefully solve some of those issues. You can expect fixes for simulation and visual bugs, both based on internal findings and issues reported by you. Finally, at the very end, here's a pretty important synopsis from the CEO of Colossal Order, kind of talking about the overall toxicity, especially towards the developers and the dev team, just about the state of the game. I'm going to read it in its entirety because I think it's important to at least listen to the developers, because I think that they are getting directed hate, as far as I understand it, that is incredibly personal. And I think there's a lot of things that go into a game like Cities Skylines that, like, community members especially need to find better ways to direct your anger and frustration. Like, you can be angry at the game and be frustrated at the game, but it's not each individual developer's fault, and you don't have a right to attack them on a personal level like they have been over the state of the game, because it's not each individual developer's fault that the game is the way that it is currently. So as written, last but not least, we have seen a growing tendency of toxicity in our community, something we have not experienced to this extent before, not only directed towards our devs, but also towards our fellow community members, resulting in people hesitating to engage with the community. In the long run, this will not only hurt the mood and the happiness of community members, but also discourage creativity and modding, something we would be very sad to see. There's actually been at least one, maybe two modders who have completely stepped away from the scene, not due to the state of the game, but specifically due to the toxicity of the community. One of these developers was someone who actually worked on one of the mods that a lot of people have in their game. I won't specifically name drop them because they stepped away for a reason, but I totally empathize with this position. These modders are out here fixing the problems and are being directed hate just because of the state of the game. And people need to really understand to direct that anger and frustration in a way more constructive way, because it's definitely not the modders' fault. They're providing you free time and labor to fix or change the game to make it the way that you want it, and you have absolutely no fucking right to treat them that way. In the next paragraph, we have always treasured having devs present on different social media platforms and having direct communication with the community, but our biggest responsibility will always be protecting the team and making sure that they work in a safe environment, so they are allowed to do their best, staying motivated and productive. So we hope we can all work together for our devs and be able to stay and be continuously active. As the mentions of this in previous entries do not seem to have moved the needle, perhaps you have a constructive way of telling us how we can improve the way we communicate with each other. Should we add more moderation, or is the only option to pull back engagement on our end, which I would personally hate to see? I appreciate that they have been incredibly communicative since launch, and I would really like to see them continue to be very vocal and do these words of the week, have developers on the Paradox live stream with Maddie, which streams every Wednesday, where Maddie is doing, kind of like Q&As, but also building a city at their Paradox offices as the official community manager for Cities Skylines. And I really appreciate the fact that they actually have developers on there answering our diligent questions. But the community doesn't really have a right, I don't think, to harass and insult these individual developers who don't make all of the decisions. How can we make sure the community is a safe place for you to share your thoughts and hopes with the game? Here's a few ideas to start. Give feedback and disagree, but do so constructively. Be specific and detailed. Don't worry about what others think. Have a diverse community so opinions and experiences will always vary. I think this is really important because I think, even from my own personal experiences talking with people who play Cities Skylines, I think there's a lot of people who play the game very differently. You know, if you look at Biffa and the way that Biffa plays the game versus the way someone like Sanctum Gamer, who's like a fantastic builder, plays the game, and versus City Planner plays, who does realism in the game to certain extents and how he plans out his cities, they all play the game in very different ways. Some of them use modding to a pretty extreme extent, while others use them in a much more limited capacity, especially someone like Overcharged Egg, who almost exclusively plays these games in a vanilla capacity. We all want different things from the game, and we all need to understand that the back end of Cities Skylines 2, at least from what modders are saying, is incredibly complex. There is so much going on back there, especially if you look at a lot of the info view mods that have been out recently. There is a lot under the hood, and every single modder who's working on the game will tell you that. They have really put a lot of tools in the back end for us to be able to build upon. That being said, not everybody wants all those tools, and not everybody wants to play the game or needs the same things that everyone else does. So I think it's really important to think about when providing criticism and comments and concerns and feedback about the game is to understand that not everybody wants all of the same stuff. Assume people mean well and remember that tone can be hard to convey in writing. I think it's incredibly important too, especially as somebody who reads Twitch messages 4 days a week, which you can find on my Twitch stream down in the description. You can find me live Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday every week, except for this week where I'll be taking Monday off and I'll actually be live on Wednesday. But I digress. That's completely irrelevant. It's sometimes really hard to tell what people are saying in the tone that they're saying it just through reading chat messages, which is why emotes and emojis are really important. So I would encourage you to use emojis when maybe leaving feedback, so that way some tone and emotion can be conveyed so people understand whether you're frustrated or whether you're just being silly or whether you're just trying to be helpful. Honestly, I'm not even gonna read the last two. They're honestly just like a rehash of the same ones. It's just like, please be nice, please be nice, please be nice. Stop being mean to everyone in the community just because you're frustrated about the state of the game. And I think that's really important. If you want to leave a nasty review on Steam, go do that. But don't direct your anger towards individual developers of the game who don't have a necessary say in every single aspect of the game. And especially don't direct that anger towards modders or other community members who are trying their best to make this community as best as possible in the current state that it is. Which honestly, with a lot of the mods that currently exist and what's currently being worked on, it's pretty freaking great. If you really haven't taken a look, if this is your first like weekly recap of mine that you've watched in a while, or you haven't like consumed a lot of City Skylines 2 content, seriously go and look at some of my older videos where I go through, especially the older weekly recaps where I go over each mod each week. That's as they're coming out, because there is some amazing ones. I will leave a link to my Thunderstore profile down below if you guys want to see how to import Thunderstore codes. You can actually do that in my 15 top mods video, which I'll be coming out with a new one sometime after the map video where we go over like the best must-have mods. But I'll leave my profile down below so you guys can download all these mods. Please read the descriptions and understand like how good the game actually is now, like what there all is to use in the game, how much detailing you can actually do now, how much of the simulation has been changed, has been fixed, has been updated. There is so much to this game now. It is really truly becoming the game that a lot of us wanted, slowly over time, obviously. Anyways, now that we're done with the word of the week, the first word of the week for the year, let's move on to the new mod updates. So here we are on Thunderstore, and there really wasn't that many new mods that have come out in the past week. There are two that are worth talking about. There is Transport Policy Adjuster and Color Adjustment. So let's dive into Transport Policy Adjuster first. This is a mod that changes the range of assigned vehicles in the slider from 50% to 200% and to 1 to 30 assigned vehicles. To be quite honest with you, I didn't really understand the 50 to 200% portion of this. So if somebody wants to explain it to me down in the description, you can let me know. I don't really understand like the range of assigned vehicles. Like, is there actually like a distance that the bus station will like assign specific buses to that they'll go back to? Like, I don't understand this. Maybe I haven't built a big enough city to really grasp that concept, but the assigned vehicles to 1 to 30 is actually fantastic. So what this allows you to do is in the transport view, depending on the line size, you might not be able to do only one train, for example. If your train line is really long, it might default to only having like a minimum of 3 based on the actual line length. Or you might want to put more than, let's say, 4 buses on a route, even though it's really short. What this allows you to do is to go, all of your lines can now have 1 to 30 assigned vehicles on them, which is really great. That adds us allows us to have the flexibility, and we don't necessarily need the guidance and hand-holding with the suggestion of locking it to whatever numbers we have. Especially if we're early on in our city and we just want a train to go from our outside connections, but we don't have that many people using it, there's really no reason to have more than like 1 or 2 trains on said line. So this allows us to have that if the line's really long. Next up is Color Adjustments by Nyoko. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but again, I'm still not sure. If you guys know how to pronounce their name, please let me know that in the comments. But this is the same person that's making some of the other graphics and rendering mods, and this allows you to fine-tune your exposure, contrast, hue, and saturation. I think Color Adjustments long-term will end up being something where we take elements from photo mode, which is kind of what this is doing. It allows us to adjust the exposure, contrast, and hue, things that are in photo mode, but actively use them while we're playing the game, so we can play the game with all the pretty graphic settings that we use in photo mode. Now, granted, it is quite limited at this point in time, and when you download this mod, it will immediately go to work, and it will look different than the vanilla settings. Obviously, you can go through and adjust it. I would like to make the suggestion that I would like this mod to potentially use Hook UI, so that way we don't have to use it in the in-game options menu by hitting escape, because you make the adjustments, then you have to go back to the game in order to see what it is. I would love it if this mod used Hook UI or maybe Clyte's UI eventually when Clyte gets his mods up and running. So that way we can actively see the changes being made to the game as we're adjusting the sliders. Because as of right now, it's really finicky and kind of difficult to like set the sliders and then go back into the game, and then you're like, how different does that really look from what it looked like before? So it would be really nice if this mod used something like Hook UI so I could actively see the changes. But otherwise, it is really nice. You get to add a lot more pop and vibrancy to your game. I definitely would suggest this mod if this is something you're looking for. Otherwise, that's about it for new mods this week. There really wasn't too much in terms of new mods or mod updates. I know a lot of the bigger mods are hard at work under the covers, and they'll start slowly coming out more and more and more. There is a big update coming to extra landscaping tools, which is a fantastic mod. If you haven't used it before, I will put a link for it down in the description down below, because it is going to be having a pretty significant update, especially including surfaces sometime in the near future. So make sure you guys have notifications turned on so you guys can keep updated with that when that has their big new update. Finally, before we go, I do want to go back over Ploppable Rico. So I had a couple people in the comments telling me last week that they did actually try it out because it was in alpha. I was just a little scared of using it personally myself, but the way it functionally works is every single building is a signature building in the signature tab. There isn't like a good UI for it yet because the game doesn't actually have preview images for all the buildings. So you will have to like kind of search through, but essentially every building you place is a signature building. It doesn't go away. It's a historic building. It'll never collapse. It'll never go, you know, bye-bye. It basically functions just like all the signature buildings do, but they're regular residential buildings. So, or industrial or office or whatever you want to place down with it. So it does work really well. It just is a little finicky and needs some time to grow. I haven't heard anybody say there was any bugs or catastrophic save failures or anything like that. So just keep that in mind when you download this mod, that, you know, it is experimental, it is in alpha, but that's basically how it works. So if this is something that interests you, this is available. Anywho, that's all for me for this weekend. I hope to have that map video up this week, and then I'm going to stop telling you guys timetables for videos at that point because I feel bad dragging you guys along. So anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching this week. I appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.